welcome back to City Chats with Joyce. I'm Joyce Dooley, the Director of Research and Innovation for Zpryme. Today is going to be a very exciting, awesome conversation with one of the best that's currently in the market when it comes to reimagining storage solutions. But before we do that, let me just kind of give a back view of how climate change is dramatically affecting how we experience our environments, and will continue to do so if we don't find a way to address these issues. And logistics companies, especially, are some of the worst offenders, as door-to-door deliveries have increased over the years. So today we're sitting down with Amanda Cowen Sanchez. She is the co-founder and COO of GoLocker, and we're going to take a deeper look at how delivery solutions can mitigate climate change and improve quality of life within cities. With that, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Joyce.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that, we've been chatting for a while, so this is really fantastic that we get to finally sit down and go through this. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, I'd really love to know what makes you so passionate about smart cities.
No, thank you, Joyce. Great question. So I think what's pretty exciting is that cities are now looking at ways to become more efficient and more environmentally friendly. And as a result, you're starting to see city officials and even policymakers coming up with some really innovative solutions. For example, if we look at urban mobility, if we look around a lot of the cities that we live in, you're starting to see tons of infrastructure for bicycle lanes everywhere, right? And then if you go to certain cities like New York, they've gone even further and they have these city bikes on almost every corner. So for your daily commute, you jump on a bike, or even if you want to run an errand. My space, logistics, just happens to fall into the urban mobility category as well. And we believe that we have a really innovative solution for any city that wants to be known as a smart city.
That's fantastic. And we're definitely going to dive into some of this a little bit more fully, which I think is going to be really enlightening and fascinating for a lot of our viewers out there who maybe don't fully see the picture yet of how logistics companies can reshape a city. And so with that, let's frame the problem of why door-to-door deliveries specifically are such a problem right now.
Yeah, I think you set that up really well, because I don't think it's common knowledge that logistics or companies in the logistics industry is one of the primary pollutants that we have. So let's look at the bigger problem. The way that we participate in commerce has changed dramatically over the past 30 years, specifically the shift from shopping in a brick and mortar store to shopping online. Now, when virtually everybody is shopping online, from things like dish soap to shoes, you're seeing more and more delivery take place, right? But the way that we do delivery is the same way we did before e-commerce existed, and that's primarily door to door. And that's where the problem comes in. When you have these courier routes that have become much more complex, much more expensive, require a significant amount of miles traveled, you have a huge impact on the environment because of all the carbon emissions that result from that. So we really haven't seen, until now, a lot of innovation in the last mile portion. And for those of you who don't know, when I say last mile, all that means is the journey a package takes from a delivery or carrier's truck to your front door.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, because I think that sets it up perfectly for this question, which is so how does GoLocker, provide a solution for this, and how do they ultimately help this problem or solve this problem?
Yeah, so the GoLocker exists to solve this problem exactly. It's actually a byproduct of what we do, the sustainability component. So what GoLocker is building is a public network of packaged lockers, also known as an out-of-home delivery network, to eliminate the delivery friction for consumers, but to create operational efficiencies for brands and carriers. This network type, this out-of-home delivery network, has been in existence for over a decade in Europe. They're kicking our butts in the sustainability space, making all these great innovations towards going green, but it hasn't been adopted widely in the United States. So that's what GoLocker is doing. So in layman's terms, imagine us placing secure package lockers in publicly accessible spaces, from anywhere from your local coffee shop to your local grocery store, where you as a consumer can have all of your packages delivered and know that they're safely waiting for you. But on the other side of that, from a carrier perspective, you've just reduced significant miles traveled by optimizing their routes. They can go from driving door to door, delivering one package per stop, to making a package at or delivery at a locker bank where they can dispose of hundreds of packages in a mere matter of minutes.
Mm. No, I can definitely see how that would be really beneficial and potentially really convenient for the consumer or the end user who can, be out running errands, say that I get my packages delivered, at the coffee shop, like you mentioned. They're out running around doing errands anyways. They might as well pick up their stuff from their coffee shop while they're having a cup on the go and then make it back home. Rather than having to feel like they have to wait all day or rush to go get a package that might be unsecured on their porch, and maybe installing surveillance cameras that they don't ultimately want but feel like they need to have as a security measure. So I can definitely see how this is a very exciting space that has multiple benefits.
Yeah.
But I also know that GoLocker is a startup company, and having a background doing startup innovation myself, I'm always fascinated to know sort of what are some of the unique challenges that you have seen when deploying GoLocker, and how it's changed over the last year or so.
It's fun to get that question from someone who's been in the trenches, right? And every startup has challenges, many challenges.
Yes.
A few, that come to mind for GoLocker is it's our mission to put these package lockers in the public space, right? Because we want to build this infrastructure for anybody to use. So when you're trying to find locker hosts when you're still in the adoption phase, it has been tough, and we're moving our way through that, which is great. But the bigger portion, which we sort of talked or touched on initially in the last part of our conversation, is what we're building is going to require behavior change of consumers.
Mm.
Amazon has done an amazing job of training us to believe that everything we order should come for free the next day and be at our front door, right? And we're now having to say, look, there's a better way for this to be done, and we know how to do it, but it's going to require you to leave your house. The good news is at GoLocker, we're starting to really see a cool shift in consumer behavior change. More and more consumers are interested in being an active participant in a solution that's good for the environment. So as long as we're doing a really good job of educating people that, look, simply making that change from getting your package at your front door to, let's say, getting it at the grocery store where you're already going multiple times a week has a significant impact on the environment, is getting people to sign up and understand, look, I can be part of the solution too.
That's really cool. And I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from. And I think for what makes this really compelling is if GoLocker, has multiple location options, right? Because if it was just one central hub that wasn't part of people's day-to-day routes, then it wouldn't be as impactful. But the fact that you are able to deploy in so many locations where people are already going, I think makes it a much easier transition for people to get more involved, like you said, and change their behavior because they're already at those locations. Anyway. And so I know that your background experience is a little interesting. So, one, would love to hear just a little bit about your background, and then also too, like what has impacted you most since you started working in a startup environment.
Yeah, so my background is the opposite of logistics. I actually spent 22 years in the healthcare space. But interestingly, the last 10 years that I spent in healthcare was, working with disruptive technology, which, is exactly what we're trying to do here. We're disrupting the status quo. My journey that got me to GoLocker is that I was one of the original investors in the company. And, I gave the company money because I believed in what it was doing. I believed in my co-founder, Nigel, who is brilliant and has just tremendous amount of industry expertise. But I had an aha moment a few years ago where I said, why am I not actively working and participating in a company that I believe is a true inevitability that it takes off here in the US? Why am I not there full time? So I left healthcare and then dove head first into logistics. Becoming a founder has taught me a lot, and it's not been one specific experience, but rather a culmination of them. For example, founding a startup company is full of uncertainty, and a lot of times we avoid that, and I've had to learn to accept that. The other piece is I've had to rewire my approach to challenges. I was taught and trained for years to control the outcome of every situation, but to believe that we even have that ability as human beings to control everything is a really false narrative. So
Mm-hmm.
now and something challenging comes across my plate, or something didn't go the way that I want it to go, I've rewired myself to look at it as, this is the reality as it stands right now. Deal with it as it comes and look for the hidden opportunity that lies there. And I am happy to say that there's been many of those hidden opportunities. So it's resulted in me being a much more calm and thoughtful leader.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think what happens a lot with like the founder experience has more to do with the grind aspect, right? Learning how to juggle things, how to pivot quickly, how to be agile. And I really like that your perspective is more intentional about, how do you face these kinds of challenges and how that's shaping you as a person and a leader moving forward. And whether, I mean, GoLocker success continues, or you pivot, you went from healthcare to logistics. Who knows? You might get into something entirely wildly different in the next 5 years. But it feels like these opportunities and these skills are really going to help take part in what happens next, which I think is really fantastic. So to build off of all of this, right, to get to the cool part, like what are some really cool projects or pilots that you're working on right now?
Oh, this is such an exciting thing to talk about. And I'm so happy to be able to share it with you. This might be the first time that we do so publicly, as a matter of fact. But we are working with one of the largest major cities in the United States that it's working on a major smart city initiative, and that is New York City. GoLocker has been selected by the New York City Department of Transportation to conduct a pilot for up to the next 36 months to show the validity in the use case for common carrier lockers. You might be asking yourselves, why on earth would a city care about package lockers, and how does that impact the city? But it's really interesting. When you look at the Department of Transportation and where they have their purview of power, right? It's a lot about transportation, the movement of freight, the movement of goods. And so by placing package lockers on the city sidewalks of New York, they're going to be creating consolidated drop-off points for all of the delivery carriers and providing them direct curb access. Now, eventually, once we prove the model, I think what is going to happen is policy change, because if you've ever driven through the city of New York or been in an Uber in the city of New York, how many times has your street been blocked by a delivery truck? I was in New York last week. I was in Midtown, and I came to an intersection, and I actually took photographs, because on every single corner of the intersection was a delivery carrier truck. And what were they doing? Blocking traffic. So eventually, imagine if not only do you have these consolidated drop-off points, which optimize carrier routes, reduce carbon emissions, create more efficiency, but you can then tell them, look, you're only allowed to block this city curb before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. You've just improved the lives of everyday residents, made their lives more efficient, which is incredible. And then you've got this sustainability KPI that a lot of cities need to hit, right? And you're making the air cleaner for the people that are there. So we're really, really excited about this pilot. We will be rolling it out with many of the major US carriers here in the United States, as well as some local 3PLs. And it gives us the opportunity to grow and really showcase what we do.
That is really exciting. And one of the big first use cases for what you're working on in one of the densest cities in America, where curbside access is, literally worth its weight in gold. I imagine in the amount of concrete. Yeah, like I think that's really fantastic. And to your point about the sustainability piece too, like so many cities have to have climate action plans and environmental sustainability governance goals. And this seems to tie all up into that, which is such a fantastic thing. So how can, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Joyce, and to be clear, it's not that GoLocker came to market to become a green solution, but what's cool is the byproduct of what we create enables the sustainability component. And I mean, I think about so many other businesses out there that the product that they bring to market actually has the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Sometimes it causes pollution. So we feel so joyful and happy to be part of something really good.
Yeah, I can see how that would be the case. And I think it's a very exciting space to be in, having entered into sustainability quite recently myself, where that is the impact of what you do, having such a positive effect on your environment, and not just your environment, potentially for other people's communities as well. I think is it just sweetens the pot, right? It makes the whole thing a lot better of an experience. So how can other cities take advantage of these opportunities for themselves?
Well, I think we're going to be creating the roadmap right here in New York for other cities to copy exactly what they're doing. And by leaning into private sector, companies like GoLocker, who know the solution and can replicate it rather than recreating the wheel, we can just bring this to any other major city that wants to participate and has the same goals.
That's fantastic. You had also kind of touched on policy a little bit, and I guess, eh, are there current policies in place that you think might need to change to shift to meet market opportunity?
I do, humbly, I do. I think we do need policy change. And I think the reason we need it is because policy change drives action, right? And so if we know that the solutions exist and you give, a city official a lever to pull to create that change, you can then suddenly enact a lot of solutions, not just solutions like GoLocker, but many that have a positive impact on the environment. But also just looking at it through a completely different lens, think about investment. A lot
Mm,
of startup companies out there that are in the green space or have a sustainability component like GoLocker have a tremendously hard time raising capital.
yeah.
So what if there was a policy that encouraged a blend of public and private sector financing in a company that had a sustainable solution? Then you de-risk that investment, but you also encourage competition because other companies can come forth and say, here, you don't need to design it yourself. Here's a solution we have. Pick the one you think that's best and go ahead and put it into place. And I think that we would see a lot more swift adoption of some really innovative problem solving ideas out there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely swifter adoption for sure in a combination like that, but also too, like, more support for the innovators who are trying to disrupt the status quo, much like you're talking about, and have real value and impact added into spaces that are in desperate need of innovation and disruption, as well. And the only thing that I'll ask you right quickly before we leave, just, if you have any final thoughts that we didn't touch on, or if, there was one aspect about the logistics industry or the process that you're working in right now that could change, like, what would it be and how would you change it?
Oh gosh. I really would love to see more people lean into the solution that specifically that we're building, only because so much data already exists in other countries to say that this is the right way to go about it. I recently attended a panel in Los Angeles that included a bunch of city officials, and everybody was talking about how do we maximize the curb and how do we democratize access to technology for people regardless of the neighborhood they live in, and how do we reduce carbon emissions? And here we have a solution that we know can do all of them. And so I
Mm.
would love to see more cities lean into that. And so massive kudos to the city of New York for going through a pilot process and looking to private sector for a potential solution. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean that the city of New York is going to hire GoLocker full time to do anything, but the fact that they are looking for solutions and allowing us to showcase what we have built is really, really exciting.
That's so fantastic. And thank you so much, Amanda. I greatly appreciate your perspective and the work that you're doing with GoLocker. I'm so glad we were able to finally sit down and get this chat together. And thank you for letting us be one of the first places that you make your announcement about your new pilot. I think that's fabulous. And perhaps we'll have another episode where we check in with you and see just sort of what happened and lessons learned.
I would love that. Such an honor to be here. So thank you so much, Joyce.
Absolutely. Anytime.